Welcome to this Pastel My Business online webinar.
A couple of things before we run the year-end. It's quite a simple process to run the year-end on My Business Online. As some of you may be aware of, as our normal Pastel packages, where the year-end is run as a utility. However, on My Business Online, it's a simple process by enabling you to add the specific date for the next financial year and setting it as the default period. So there's no more a process of having to create a copied company and then having to move over to your next company. In My Business Online, you would just create that period and then from there process in the next financial year. But I will get to this at a later stage. So just to go through the steps a few of the steps that we need to do for preparation in year end. Namely, there's printing of reports and additional processing such as your recon and so on. I will take you briefly through that. Firstly, you would need to print some reports. These include your trial balance. So what I'm going to do is, for this purpose, I'm going to view the demo and then at a later stage log into my company. Okay, so the main thing is the reports that you need to print for year end. Just to touch on it, under your accountants area, you've got your trial balance that you can export. This export, either you can send it to your accountant, or if you do have Pastel Auditor, you can actually import it from there and then create your annual statements. Alternatively, we've got your reports, financial statements, and in there you'll see that we have all three of your financial statement reports. Namely, your trial balance, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into that. Then you'll select for the year, so either you can say year monthly, then select the specific year. Remember, if you process for previous years, you can also go and actually view those years. So for this purpose, I'm going to select this year, and then you can also select closing balances or movements. And on all your reports, you have an option to either view the reports on your screen, otherwise print it and email it, which is quite nice, especially if you've got an accountant doing your books. You can just email those reports to, alternatively invite them as a user, and they can access all this information by themselves. So let's go view reports. Okay, so this is exactly more or less how your trial balance is going to look. Exactly the same as all the normal Pastel programs. If you wanted to see, let's say, for example, we've got our sales there. You can actually click down on your sales if you want a more detailed report. And from there, you can view all your different invoices. And it will also tell you page 1 of 14, so you've also got an indication of how many pages there are and whether you want to PDF it or save it to Excel. And as well, if you want to drop down to a specific invoice, you can also do that. So this is just a detailed report so that you can see exactly on that trial balance for sales. If you've got a total, you can see what that total is made up of. And even drop down to see exactly till the point of the invoice. Okay, so just to look at that trial balance again as well, it's got your category, so it will tell you exactly what category it is, whether sales, expense, income, current asset, non-current asset. So this you'll print. And then also view it. If, like I said, if you've got any amount there that you actually want to see what everything is included in that amount, click down and it will give you a brief summary. Our next reports, if you go to reports, financial statements, is your profit and loss report. On your profit and loss report, it will ask you whether you want to see it via purchases or sales. I'm not going to go much into detail regarding this, but if you do require additional information, I would highly suggest that you go to the help menu and read under calculation of cost of sales based on sales and purchases and see what the differences are, just to make sure you are happy with your profit and loss statement. Before you continue with the year end, so what we're going to do is actually just view that report. Okay, so normally known as your income statements, what you can do is as well drop down. So you've got your sales, your cost of sales, you've also got your other income, your expenses as well. And so what you can do is if you want to see what those sales entail, you can actually click on the sales and from there also view down a complete breakdown of all those sales. So when running through this reports, the whole point is to print out the reports and also have a look at what is captured, what was captured throughout the year is 100% correct to what is pulled on your final statements, your financial statements. Your last report, let's go back to the financial statements. Your last report is your statements of asset and liabilities, which will be, let me go into that, which is a detailed report of all your assets and liabilities, and will also show you the balances thereof. So let's go view that report. Okay, so traditionally called your balance sheet. So you'll see you also have the option to email it straight from here, print it, and also otherwise PDF it or pull it to Excel. Okay, but same scenario, if you need to break down and see exactly what equipment everything entails, you can actually click on the equipment. And then also see what journal entries were processed for that. The nice thing about it is in My Business Online, you can also load your assets. So if you have loaded any assets, you'd actually see it appear on your balance sheet, so your statement of assets and liabilities report, and be able to see those amounts as well. So you won't have to pull this statement up and then go and add an additional line, because you'd already have all your assets entered on there. So the main thing is just to print out all three of these reports, all your financial reports, and from there view the details on it. Well, view the reports, and if you want to go down and actually see what details entails in it, click down on it and it will show you all the details till the point where you can actually see the invoice. Once you have printed all these financial statement reports, there are additional reports that you need to be prepared as well. Namely, your reports, well, you'd go to reports, customers, and then customer balances, days outstanding. Traditionally this is known as your age analysis. This will show you a detailed summary of all the amounts owed to you by your customers. It will either show it in your current 30 days or otherwise 60 days, 90 days, and so on. So that when you're running your year end, you know the state of your affairs with your customer controls. So what we're going to do is just actually view that report to the screen. Okay, so you can either select whether you want it for both or whether active or inactive if you have actually deactivated any clients. And then also the different categories. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select for all the date range because I want all the information. And then as well, you've got an option to either print it summary or detailed. So what we can do is select summary on this one from the view report, and then you'll see a list of all your customers and as well what their days outstanding are. And just to give you that detailed report, so if I change that back and I select the style as detailed, I'm going to select all my customers and as well all the categories. Alternatively, you can leave all of this blank and the system will automatically know to take it from your first customer to your last one. So we can view that report. And then you'll see an exact breakdown. So it will show you all the invoices processed towards that customer for each one of them. And like I said, from here you can email it directly and print it or otherwise save it to PDF or Excel. Okay, the next report that you will also need to print out and have a look at is your supplier and your supplier balance days outstanding. Okay, so I'm going to view that report as well. Okay, and this will just, the supply balance will just help enable you to be on top of your creditors or your suppliers to see what the balances are that you have outstanding with them as mentioned. Okay, so let's view, like I said, leave it blank if you want to view everyone, otherwise you can go and select it per customer or category. And then what we can do is also, you can either select it detailed or summary. So what we can do is select summary there and then view reports. And then you'll see your summary and over 30 days, current, 30, 60, 90, and 120. So the main thing is to print out all your financial statements, your customer age analysis and as well your supplier age analysis. And from here, ensure that all the totals that are added there actually correspond to what you have in your financial statements as well. The next reports that you also need to have a look at is if you go to reports, items or inventory. Okay, and then your item valuation. This is a brief of the cost of all your items, the quantity that you have on hand. This is important, as this needs to be updated when you move into your new financial year, so that you ensure exactly what is indicated there is exactly what might be in the storeroom. So what needs to be done is you need to ensure that when you print this report and you actually view it. So let's quickly just view it then. You'll be able to see what your quantity on hand is and what the value thereof is as well. So always ensure that that quantity on hand is correct. So that when you start with your new financial year, you can also have a look and say, okay, what do I need? What have I got enough of as well? And that's so the amounts as well is correct on your balance sheet. So ensure there's no discrepancies between what is on the system and what is actually in your storeroom. Okay, so what you'll do is just either email that or print it, depending on which form you're going to use. So either you're going to send it to your accountant, or otherwise you're going to print it out for yourself. And then also save it and keep those documents on hand. Okay, the next report and as well, just on the item valuation report, if you do see that there needs to be any adjustments, so you did a stock take and you see that your, let's say in my company example, aluminium road frames, instead of being 191, there only needs to be 185. What you can actually do is go to your items, select item, adjust item adjustments, and then what you'll see is you can actually go and select either you adjusting the selling price or otherwise the quantity. And then from there you can go select all the relevant items that need adjustments. So you can go and select that, and it will actually tell you new quantity on hand. And then you can also put in a reason. So either there could have been damaged stock and therefore that's write-off and you need to reduce the quantity, or whatever other reason there might be relevant to your company. The other report that you will also need to view is the following. If you go to reports, okay, so just on the item one, just to rerun that again, you go to items or inventory. From there, your item valuation. Have a look what the quantity and the value is. If there needs to be any changes on that, go to your items and then item adjustments. Okay, so our next one is our tax reports. Okay, and as well, you can also go through your accountants area, and then as well, you've got your reports through there. Okay, so one of the main reports is what your tax reports. Quite a nice report due to the fact that it shows you all the listings, so all the tax on all your relevant invoices or any processing that might have occurred. So you also have an option to select the different tax periods. So I'm going to include everything, and then as well for the different period. And then from there, you can also say whether you want detailed or summary. In this scenario, I'm going to select detailed as I want to see each and every invoice. And then you can also see if there were any adjustments made, and then also if there were any tax payments made or refunds. I've just got a question I've just seen now from Liesel. Liesel just wants to know, how did I go back to the previous screen? Liesel, I just selected on the top of my screen just to go back, just on the normal internet page. So it's nothing on the My Business Online side, but just going back on the internet screen. I hope that answers your question. Okay, great. Okay, if you have a look at your tax report, you'll see that it lists each and every, so you've got your exempt, if you might have used that as your tax system. Otherwise, let's have a look quickly. Okay, then you'll have a look, exclusive, inclusive, and then as well we'll show you the difference amounts on the different invoices. So I mean, you can even go down to that invoice and view that invoice and see exactly what was on there. So you'll see those were the total amounts, and then from there you'll see the subtotal and also the tax thereon. Okay, and from there you'll get the total of all your tax. So I mean, I'm on page, it says page 1 of 21. So this is a nice report to go through to see exactly what tax is payable and not. I've got a question from Vanessa. Vanessa wants to know, does the tax report include any payments already made to SARS? Yes, this will include it. That will be the next step where I'll be going to tax payments and refunds. But maybe could you go back to that tax report just to show you? If you go back to your tax report, you'll select your tax report, and then actually that tick at the bottom where it says include tax payments or refunds. So as soon as on the system you actually go to your tax payments and refunds and process a payment to your bank account, the system assumes that you're actually on your own. So once you process that you go actually to SARS, or you do that transfer towards to SARS and you make that payment. So if you did make a payment, you actually tick there, include tax payments, and then what will happen is it will actually show that payment that you did make. But that's going to be on my next step, so I'll highlight that as well again. Okay, so now that we're done with the tax report, you'd actually go to your accountants area and select your tax payments and refunds. Okay, so what this does is, as you're aware, your tax reports must be submitted to your local authority on a regular basis, and will either indicate that you need to pay tax, excess, or receive a refund. And it is extremely important to ensure that you process the adjustments and payments and refunds correctly to avoid any penalties. My Business Online will calculate the tax for you, namely via input tax and output tax. Your input tax is calculated by working out the tax included in all purchases. So whether it be your items or non-item base that you have processed on My Business Online. And your output tax is calculated by working out the tax included in all your sales. So whether it be item or non-item base. Okay, so just to put that into perspective, I mean your input tax would be your purchases, so that you do through your suppliers, and then your output tax would be that you get from your customers, so when your customers make a purchase. Okay, so if your input tax is higher than your output tax, so if your purchases are higher than what you're actually selling, then a refund will be due to you, and vice versa. So if your output tax is higher than your input tax, you would need to make a payment. Okay, so what the system will do is it will actually show you exactly that. So to process a tax payment, a tax payment and refund in My Business Online, you would select, as we went to Accountants area, tax payments and refunds, and then you'll see the screen that you're viewing now on your screen. And then on what you'll do is you'll also go, it will just be a brief summary, but what you can do is from your dates, you can go and select the relevant dates. So in my aspects, it's going to be from the 1st of March until the end of February, because that's my financial year. Okay, then it will show me a summary of exactly the output tax and the input tax I've had. So if you want detailed reports on that, you'd go and print the previous report that we just did, your tax reports. So you'd go to your reports and select that tax report. And then you can see a summary of exactly where all these amounts come from. Okay, so if you have a look, the system will actually tell you that a payment is due. What you'll need to do is you'll put in the date that you are actually making that payment. So let's say I am making the payment today, I'll leave it as the 3rd, and then I'll also go and select which account it's going to affect, so which account this is actually coming out of. Because in the end, I need my Business Online system to keep track of where the money is going in and out. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on my current accounts. Okay, then from there I can put in my reference, so I can say my VAT return. I mean, your description is there. You can either put in SARS and then the date, or either February, so that you know exactly what that payment is for, and then as well put in the description, so you can put in a detailed description there. Once that is done, I mean, the thing is you can adjust the amounts on the system. However, we would not advise that, because the thing is the system is calculating it from what you've processed. So once that amount is there, you can actually process it. And once you process it, it does seal it in. So just to get back to Vanessa's question earlier, if you do process it there, what will happen is when you print your tax reports, so if you go accountants area, your reports, and you go view that tax report, you'll go and tick that block, and it will actually pull through that payment that you just made on the previous screen. It will pull it as well on that report, pull it through on that report. Okay, so that's on the tax payments and refund side, and printing other reports. I mean, the thing is we have tons of other reports that you can actually view on your screen, well, view in the system. So, I mean, you can go from customers. If you want other customer reports, I mean, we've got sales by customers. We've got, well, the customer statement, which are brilliant. I mean, you can send that to your customers, and then also customer transacting. If you can take any means of reports there to make it easier for you to pull all those reports. Just want to quickly have a look. I have a few questions here. I just want to quickly find out, Vanessa, did that explain, well, did that answer your question? I've also got a question from Danielle. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Danielle Alberts. The question is, if I pay tax and process it through the bank statement, how do I then bring it through to the tax payments and refund section? What will happen is once you'll actually process your tax payments and refunds, and from there it will still pull through what is due with regards to your output tax and input tax. So what is due for you to pay over, or otherwise, whether it be a refund. So even though you are processing it through your bank, well, whether you're processing it through your bank statement or otherwise importing it through your bank statement, you would still need to go and process that to ensure that, because what happens is when you process this, on your tax report, it actually picks up that that payment was made. And then if you go to your banking and you go to your reconciled bank and credit cards, you would see the payment there and that it has been paid. I hope that answers your question. I'm just quickly going through some of the questions. I see there's a few coming up. I've got a question from Marianka Tirona. Sorry if I don't pronounce that correctly. She's got a scenario where she has 3 companies on Pastel My Business Online, and she wants to know if there's a way that she can combine all 3 of the companies' tax reports. Marianne, what you can do is if you have a look at your tax reports, you actually have an option to either, I'm just quickly going to view that to my screen. You either have an option to either save it to PDF or otherwise Excel. So your Excel would be your second option, the XLS option there. What you can do is export that into Excel, and then from there, well, export all 3 of the companies, and then from there combine the figures as you would normally in Excel. So either copy and paste it, or if you have another means, that's, yeah, the basic one would just be copy and paste it over, and then you can consolidate it there. Okay, now that we have done all the reports, there are a few processes that also need to be complete. Okay, so firstly, like I mentioned on your bank reconciliation, this is quite imperative to ensure that your transactions and balances on the My Business Online account balances to the physical bank accounts. So this, you need to ensure that what is actually, when you go to the bank, what is reflecting there is exactly the same that's on the system. Otherwise, there is differences, and you need to find where those differences are. So if we go to reconcile banks and credit cards, so I mean, now that you've got all your reports together and you've also printed out summaries, you can go and have a look and see exactly on your bank recon what the balances are, what the amounts that were processed, and see that that actually does consolidate. If you have more than one bank account, what you would need to do is you need to do this for each and every one of the bank accounts. And then what you need to do is also ensure, well, you can select it for the date range. So if you're doing it for complete financial year, ensure that you actually go and select from January, from the beginning of March until the end of February. And then you can also tick that, and it will also show you reconcile transactions as well. So if we just go into just one more transactions on there. Okay, so you go all the way to March. Okay, yes. Okay, then you'll see it will pull through everything. Then you can also see what you've reconciled this far and what has not been reconciled. So maybe just have a look at if there's something that hasn't been reconciled, if in fact it is correct. So it's just double checking what's been processed throughout the year to ensure that the way it is displayed in the system is 100% correct. Okay, so now what we're going to do is now that you've reconciled your whole system and you've had a look at all your reports and you've made the adjustments that need to be adjusted, or you've processed any journal entries that needed to be processed, I'm going to go through the steps of actually running your year end. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go, I'm going to log out of the demo company for this purposes because I need to work in a live one, and log into my own one. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll go to company, you'll go manage companies. Okay, and what you'll see is a list of all your companies. So on my screen you'll see that I do have 5 companies. So this process you'll have to do with all 5 companies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work in my Beads a Lot company for the demo purposes. So I'll go edit on that. Then what will happen is we'll bring up all the company information. So you've got your normal tabs, your additional details, the standard company details. So what I'll do is you'll see next to additional details, you've got a tab called your financial years. And this is where on the system, you'll see currently I've got a few tabs set up there. Okay, I've seen I've already created my next financial year. But what will happen is, so I'm just going to log out of this company. So you'll go company, manage companies. Okay, so I'm in another company now. So what I'll do is I'll select financial years. And then from there, you'll see that you see your current financial year. And then what will happen is you'll also see previous years. So what's great about the system is you never close off your year. Well, you close it off, but you never lose that information. You never have to store it or create a copy company or anything like that. You'd be able to process in that financial year if need be. So what I'm going to do is to add my new financial year, I'd select the add sign, so the green sign at the end. And there you'll see it will automatically pick up that my years run from the beginning of March until the end of February. Then what will happen is currently this financial year, so my 2011 to 2012 financial year is ticked as my default year. So what I'll need to do is once I've done with all my reports, I can actually go and tick that as the default. And then from there, save it. So now you're telling the system that you are running within the periods of the beginning of March until the end of February 2013. So just to go through that again, what you'll do is you'll go to company, manage companies. All your companies will be listed. So please note that you need to do this for each and every company. From there, you'll go and edit the company. Then go to your financial years tab, and then from there create that financial year, which I've got already there, and then tick it as your default year. If you do by accidentally create an additional year, you can just go and tick the red sign and actually remove it. And then from there you'll just save it. Note as well though, even if you don't go into the system yourself and change those dates, My Business Online does have a notification system, and it will tell you that, or when you start reaching February closer to your financial year end, it will actually tell you that you need to go and create that financial year end. So it will prompt you to do that. So don't be worried if we'll set a date and an alarm for it. If it might slip just as you get to the end of February, the system will notify you that you need to create that that end period. And yeah, that pretty much, Pastel does it all for you in the back end of the system. You will notice that when you print your trial balance, once you've created that additional financial year, your income statement will be zeroed out and all assets and liabilities account will have balances carried forward from the previous period. And you will also see retained income, well, a retained income account, which is a system-generated account that Pastel My Business Online takes care of for you and will be the balance from the profits from the previous year being carried over to your trial balance. Okay, so I mean, pretty much, so all you have to do from your side is you need to print those reports. So I mean, just to run through it again, your trial balance, all your financial statements, your trial balance, your profit and loss, and then also your statements of asset and liabilities. So either, save this into PDF or into Excel. And if you've got numerous companies, save them into Excel and then consolidate them. And then if you need to email it through to your accountant. And then as well, if you do have Pastel Auditor, please note that you can actually export the trial balance and import it into Pastel Auditor, which makes it so much easier because you have your complete annual statements done for you. As well, on a report side, your customer reports, ensure that you print out your customer balances, so your age analysis, to see exactly the state of what the customers owe you. Also on your supplier side, ensure that you also know what is owed by you to your suppliers. And then your items as well, which is quite important. Your item valuation, ensure that what's on the system, the quantity and the value as well, is the correct amount. If you need to change it, like I said, go to your item adjustment and make those changes. So I know that there is normally an annual stock take. So once that's done, come and make the adjustments on all the items that possibly need the adjustments. Okay, and then also your tax reports. What you could do is process your tax payments and refunds first. Once that's done, go and print out your tax report, and then from there see all the tax amounts on all your relevant instances, and then as well see what's been paid over this far. And from that, I mean, that's pretty much everything from what you need to do from the My Business side. Once all those reports are done and you've actually had a look that what's appearing there is 100% correct, you'd actually need to go to your company and manage companies. Go edit your companies. So if you have 3 companies, edit each one of them, and you need to create that financial year and then tick it as your default year to tell the system that you will be running within that year. Okay, I see I have a few questions. What I'm going to do is see if I can quickly address some of them. What I'm doing is I'm trying to go through all the questions at the moment. If I don't go through all your questions at this moment, what will happen is I will get back to you via email after the webinar. So please feel free to ask any questions. Otherwise, as I did mention, you can by all means please otherwise email our support team at support@pastel.co.za or give them a call and you can actually ask them your question that you might have. They are there to assist you and more than willing to. So please do give them a ring if you have any questions on whether it be year-end or even if you want to start preparing now for year-end. I mean, getting all those reports together, by all means, give them a ring and they can assist you or even add to what I have mentioned today. Vanessa, I've got a question from her. Are there any reports that you cannot print at a later stage after processing the next financial year, and if so, which ones? On your reporting side, because the thing is My Business Online runs according to your periods, what you can do is you can go and select the relevant dates. So it's date specific, not period specific. So if you need to go and produce reports for a previous year, you can actually go and do that by just indicating the year. And as well with your supplier as well, you've got all your supplier reports, which you'd also be able to do that for. And your tax, I mean, your tax payments and refunds are a month-on-month basis or whenever you process it. But you can always go and print out your tax reports and actually go and indicate, is it yearly, what is your date range as well, and then for which years. So note that if you do process for previous years, you'd be able to actually go and produce that report as it will pick up the history for you. And you can just go and select on the relevant year. So because it's date specific, you'll always be able to go back and print a report because it's not period and you're not closing off that year. You are closing it in the sense that you're submitting it, but you can still access that information. It will always be there. Okay, I've got a question from Vanessa as well. For your item valuation, I mean, you can run it. The thing is, I mean, you can always run it back and see. Let's quickly go back. I'm going to quickly run it back on mine. What will happen is it will, sorry, just give me a second. I think what you need to do is, because the thing is when you're printing your item reports is to, after your financial year, is to print it so that, or save it to PDF and save it onto your computer, and then when it comes to your next year, actually print out that report. So I mean, for the entire year, you can still print it out. If you need to go back other years, you can still print it out. But the system is still going to show you the inventory to date that you've got. I mean, it can show you the movement of the inventory, that it can do. I've got a question from Quibby. He wants to know if you can make adjustments after your year is finished. You can make adjustments. I mean, if you need to make adjustments, you can actually go, let's say your process banks a credit card. Because it's date specific, you can go and select your own periods. And I'm just waiting for that to run. So once you've selected that, you can go and select that you want it for previous periods. So let's say I want it for March until it will actually pull through my previous transactions, and there you would be able to make adjustments. Or otherwise delete it. So if that answers your question, Kirby. So I mean, the data is never closed off. It's always there. So you can access it. You can access that invoice. I mean, if you need to process it, reruns, then you can actually do that. The thing is, you can close your. I've got a question. Sorry, from Liesel. Let me just quickly address your question. How do you close the books off so that no changes can be made? Okay, so Liesel, just on that note, I mean, the thing is, yes, you can go back to the year end. Once it is settled, as an administrator, I think not everyone would be able to access, well, to be able to go into the previous information. So I think you as an administrator should maybe limit that, people going back. But the system will always, as your default date, will always be for the previous year, the year that you've set it up. I've got a question from Vanessa again. Vanessa wants to know how many financial years can you keep for one company. Vanessa, at the moment, the product's only been around for 3.5 years. So this far, we've got companies that are running for 3.5 years on the My Business Online. And the companies will be available for unlimited, well, as many years as you go along with the program. So even if it's 10 years down the line or 30 or 50 years down the line, you'd still be able to have that information. So at the moment, there hasn't been any terms set in to say that we'll only keep, let's say, 10 years or 5 years according to size. This far, we keep all the information as you go along.
Thank you for joining us for this My Business Online webinar. If you found it useful, please visit the Pastel website to find out about future My Business Online webinars or training courses. Alternatively, contact us on sales@pastelmybusiness.com.